And last time we spoke about beauty and the source of shame, and we started off with discussing the neshama and the guf, the relationship between the physical and the spiritual, with the spiritual being the core, and then the outer expression of that, the physicality, being the guf. And we are up to, and then we spoke about the fact that the shame, the busha, comes from when there is this disconnect between the two parts of it. So we've got a person whose neshama is sort of shining through into the body, that's Adam Rishon, that's Adam before he sins. And then you've got the opposite, which is when the clothes and the way that a person expresses himself outwardly with their guf, with their body, is something which is an antithesis to the neshama, to the soul. And therefore that's where busha comes from. That's where shame and the idea of that clash internally between the neshama and the guf is expressed. He continues on page 121. The result of the sin is the tension between neshama and body, between spirituality and materialism. The two were created to be in harmony and partners. Now they're at war. The body, which had been an avenue to the spiritual, has become a distraction, meaning essentially that's what the guf is meant to be. All physicality is supposed to be only something which is a means to an end, a means to accessing the spiritual, but instead it leads a person astray. When one expands, the other shrinks. This is after the sin. Before one can develop spiritually, become more sensitive, the physical has to be controlled. If one stimulates the physical, then the spiritual is dulled. The relationship which was to be complementary has become inverse. Again, all of this after the sin of Adam HaRishon, after the sin of Adam and Eve, this is the relationship between body and guf. They're almost locked in constantly in this struggle between the two. One who wishes to learn Torah must learn to discipline his material nature. In turn, as Torah content increases in the personality, which is the increase of spirituality, then the physical becomes tamed. The Gemara teaches this inverse relationship in a striking way. Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya was engaged in a conversation with a Roman princess. Rabbi Yeshua was the wisest of all the Jews, and apart from his legendary greatness, he was also outstandingly ugly. In fact, the princess asked him, how could this be that there was such great wisdom contained in such a lowly, ugly vessel? Rabbi Yeshua replies, in what does your father keep his wine? She replies, in earthenware pottery vessels. Caesar keeps his wine in earthenware jars? Is that fitting? Said Rabbi Yeshua. Surely you should keep them in gold and silver vessel. Caesar's daughter agreed, and the princess returned to the palace. She ordered all of the father's wine transferred to gold and silver containers. Of course, what happened was it leached from the containers and it went bad. When Caesar tasted the wine, he demanded an explanation. What happened? Who's ruined all of my wine? His daughter said, Rabbi Yeshua told me to do it. Caesar calls him and says, what's going on? Answers Rabbi Yeshua, I simply answered her according to her question. I wanted to show her that when the vessel becomes more important than its contents, then the contents themselves become spoiled. These are profound words, he says. Page 122. It's not accidental. This question was asked by a Roman woman. Rome is the legacy of Greece, where the culture is the idea of aesthetics. Beautiful contents, according to them, demanded beautiful containers. And it is also a woman who is responsible for that expression of beauty. And therefore, this Roman woman is unable to reconcile the fact there could be such great wisdom of Rabbi Yeshua in such a lowly body, a misshapen and ugly container. Rabbi Yeshua teaches her that actually in the world of spirituality, the two are locked in a battle. The container has to be simple in order for the contents to be pure. A vessel which is humble does not detract from its contents. And therefore, that's why Moshe Rabbeinu is the greatest teacher that we ever had. He's the Amnov Mikol Adam. He's described as the most humble person ever because Moshe Rabbeinu is all about the contents. It's all about the spirituality that is contained within, not about him himself, not about his ego, not about his own personality. He's the most humble. The Gemara says the conversation doesn't end there. Caesar's daughter is not yet convinced by the answer. What about your colleagues, she says, referring to the fact that some of the other sages are extremely beautiful. He continues, and she asks, what about daughter is perplexed, top of page 123. If ugliness is a prerequisite for the wisdom, why is it that some sages are both beautiful and wise? Rabbi Yeshua replies, if they would have been ugly, then actually they would have been even wiser. Quite a sensible, clever response. Despite the disadvantage of the physical beauty, he was saying, they achieved wisdom. We learn, therefore, the most powerful way to increase spiritual depth is to control that physical. This is the essence of tznius, the profound modesty, which is the domain of Jewish women. In a woman, physical beauty is striking and sensual, uncontrolled, it's projected as an animal, and the spiritual withers and wilts. The special and sacred task of a Jewish woman is to present the physical in such a way that the neshama shines through. Expressing the body as a fashion statement may dictate, expressing the body with deportment, like lowliness, which is physical, these lead to a loss of refinement and profaning of the holy. The most important rule is that the spiritual flourishes because it is hidden. The real beauty of women in Jewish terms lies in deep privacy and guarding morality. We actually do a daytime program at school, and has been here called Reclaiming Dignity, with the understanding that it's about being a dignified person, that tznius, the concept, is not just about covering up, and that's certainly a part of it, but it's also about the way that one relates to oneself, the way that one relates to the world, the way that one expresses oneself. That is both for a woman and also for a man as well. And therefore, it's about teaching that and us understanding for ourselves. As he puts it, the way is that it should be something where the neshama shines through. Physical enables our neshama to shine through, rather than becoming something which is the antithesis to our neshama. He ends off as Yosef, the only man in Chumash who's described as being beautiful, in the terms usually used for a woman, resists immorality in a superhuman fashion. The two of these go together, meaning Yosef has real beauty and is therefore also able to resist immorality. Our inner spiritual values are inversely related to outer physical ones. This principle applies on many levels. Pathways in the spiritual are opposite to pathways in the physical. In the spiritual world, for example, things improve with time. Wisdom increases with age, but in the physical, things degrade, they decay. The body deteriorates with age, no matter how we nurture it. The physical is the zone of contact with the evil and death forces. It's subject to the forces, and its pathway is negative, from strength to disintegration. Whereas the spiritual, you're connecting with a higher reality, and therefore the pathway is upwards. It goes from weaker to stronger. Everything in the physical world gets worn down with time, gets worse, except for wine. Interesting thing. Wine improves with age. It's no accident that Rabbi Yeshua's lesson with the Roman princess was taught with wine, because wine is the physical creation which provides a window into the hidden world. That's why wine in Hebrew is yayin, whose gematria, the numerical equivalent, is sod, which is secret. Nichnas yayin, wine goes in, a person imbibes wine, yotza sod, and the secrets come out. Wine has the capacity to reveal secrets in more ways than one. It has the paradoxical capacity to dehumanize and make what it uses it to excess part of the physical, but if it's used correctly, then it elevates, sensitizes a person's consciousness. It's a physical substance, but it has connection to the spiritual. This insight leads to an understanding of special depth in the Jewish path to inner growth. Our path, our Torah method of correcting the problem of tension between spiritual and physical is by connecting the two, not by abstaining, but using the physical as a vehicle for the spiritual. Therefore, we take wine, that physical substance which is most spiritual-like, and we use that at occasions where we connect body and soul. At a wedding, connecting two physical bodies. At a bris, circumcision, where we have sanctifying of the body. At a kiddush, where we sanctify time, going into a Shabbos or Yom Tov. 1, 2, 5. That is our path to generate harmony between the inner and outer worlds. We don't reject the physical, which is easier to do. We bring it under control of the spiritual and train our body, our physicality, into loyalty to the neshama. This harmony of opposites creates true beauty and is the cure for shame. That must be our path until the end of history, when the body and the physical will again become spiritually glowing vessels as they were created to be. Wishing everyone a wonderful Shabbos, and please God, I will be back next week in person from our new home.